So I just learned about the line concept in Saudi Arabia, and I have a lot of input for this because in my philosophical progressions, I came up with something called the artist's true utopian society, and I've dabbled upon it, but I always hid something. So in my writing, which I deleted apparently, for how I was considering making like a movie out of this, but that I designed a certain type of skyscraper that fits all the needs of people, and it's not like Judge Dredd or anything like that, that we can actually basically pursue the exact opposite of what we have now in a civil structure, where people live in these hive-like constructions, where we could actually spread by surface area and take all of our farmland and turn them into a giant constructed building that is almost free energy. It is basically free energy, and this tower can power all the people. And so what's the problem with that? Well, eventually, as you start spreading again, you need another layer, and so you need another tower. And so every tower can support a certain amount of surface area. Well, then if you build another tower and another tower, and say now you have a 3x3 structure with, one in the middle, and so on and so forth, that by layer, eventually, just like this line in Saudi Arabia, which is the exact same concept, will spread across the surface of our entire planet. Now, in my allegory, I explained that the whole point of this is that people have true individuality with infinite potential. And so it's the only way to foresee our epitome, how good could we ever possibly be, through the laws of free will. And at the end of it, eventually, the whole point is that people then start to focus solely on art. And that means creation in any of its various forms. Say even a plumber with a pipe would make the most beautiful pipes that you'd ever see, sort of stuff like that, right? And so we become reliant on our history and our past, and skip forward a few thousand years, and now we're starting to take away the core of our planets. Now we are removing that material because of all of the natural resources that we ever had from our sustainable system, through the layering and the pillar construction that sustains per layer, that you have to start then removing raw materials that are not cognitively fabricated or changed or manipulated. So the whole point is that all this history, all this creation has to be prolonged, and that's your history, that's your culture, that is preserving free will to its most epitomal state, and epitomal, if that's the right word. And so eventually there's no core to our planet, there's no planet at all. Everything's reliant on these self-sustaining towers. And I've been watching too much Star Trek, but I guess you could look at it similar to a Borg cube, but it's not a Borg cube. It's based on the idea of just preserving individuality, infinite potential. The problem is that matter is limited, so eventually you will have to start destroying the past so that people can keep preserving their right to create. Otherwise, they lose their entire foundations of what it means to be free will and what it means to be like creatures. So what, in my interpretations of the story, I went so far into the future that we could use all atoms in the universe, and that then what happens then? Well, there are only so many atoms, there's only so many people, and there's only so many things that can legibly be created. So could we have infinite potential? Well, in theory, the human has infinite potential, but only through destruction. And so then we have to start destroying our history, and that becomes another conflict. Who has the right to exist, to create, to preserve that history? And so then you have these paradoxes that start creating all these dimensions that are very complicated. I made it to 7. I still can't even figure out what the fucking 7th one was. But in string theory, there's 11 dimensions. So potentially there are 11 dimensions of paradoxes and what it means to be a cognitive, free will, philosophical species. And the whole thing in my story, I took it to, like I said, consuming all matter. So you reach a point where the energy that has escaped our grasp from the beginning of time, and say there's just one little particle just traveling, and eventually the gravitational field that we've built out so outwardly spins back around. This is why I wanted to turn it into a movie, but I'm just not a writer. So it starts to spin and comes into this gravitational field, which is akin to like a black hole, except that all matter and atoms that have constructed this giant system, all of a sudden we are thinning it out to its most, structurally sustainable means, so that we're like compromising the ability to still create, but not entirely destroy this thing. And eventually then we decay artistically because we don't have as much potential, right? So because there's not, if a marble is this big, or a marble slab is this big versus this big, or a block of wood, for instance, you can't make a guitar out of a chunk of wood that's cut for a violin. It's just not going to be the same as having that old, huge 18 by 12 or 10 or something, depending on the guitar size, but for a back of a guitar. And you want to have one piece back. Well, then eventually you're going to have to checker that all together and design a way to splice all those little squares together so that you could have that large of a blanket if you want to make, say, a guitar. And so everything just spreads out, and we become more manipulated in the sort of Stockholm effect of this entire structure. And I've had a few dreams where I was stuck on this thing too, and my brain can construct the entire fucking thing, apparently. And so my dreams are crazy, man, I tell you what. So this thing eventually collapses into a Big Bang. And it's the exact opposite of what a black hole is. And so one of my philosophical progressions, I consider that it could be possible that we are this infinitely old society that inevitably formed reality into this structure that just collapsed upon itself from one little particle that escaped. And then you have all of ours, and just like the Big Bang, it's just that supercritical mass. All it takes is just one little bit extra. And then I also had other theories on creation of the universe by similar ideas. Of course, that's just man's indulgence, right? So the Saudi Arabian, the line is what it's called. I look at that, and it's not even close to the true artist utopian society and the way that actually can form. That thing, I gave us the best, let's just find a magical solution to every little problem. I studied it for like 2 years trying to understand all this stuff. And that was like 4 or 5 years ago before I realized that there's no hope. Like, it's pretty much just no hope. I mean, we keep cycling, and we keep creating and destroying one another and stuff like that. But so that's one reason why I know, like, there's no reason to expand off planet. We can't even handle international relations. And people, like, the line, what that's going to do, if you look at our modern civil structure of the way skyscrapers function, the top is the most desirable, and it's class divisional, and then you have the owner of the skyscraper, and then everybody below. Well, this thing is basically a skyscraper laying down, so now the issues of how slums form have all been cubed, and so everything that is going to, like, start intermingling, you're eventually going to have one side and one side of this thing that are butting heads inwardly. And because that's the most desirable location to be, there's always an exit. You get your oceans and stuff, you know, you're going to have the most power if you're on the opposite sides, with the least influence from the other sides, and that all flows inwardly. And so you look at how you can create a sort of turbulent algorithm in a social theory to really describe the next few generations. If they said it can hold 9 billion people, one, you're gonna have a baby boom, and that's another huge issue. And that leads into, like, civil wars and things, because the people are going to be trapped. So if people are going to be trapped, they're isolated into the middle, which, just like we have today, and it's typically the center of cities where there's the most crime, there's the most slum-like living standards, that the people are going to be trapped in there. And the two outward forces, you know, the people that basically run everything in the upper structures, are going to just isolate people and be able to remove them like pests. It's really disturbing to consider that. So eventually, you know, you're going to have underground societies, just no different than like it used to be in the 1100s, I think it was, when the Shashins formed. I haven't brushed up on my history of the old assassins, but that's a very interesting concept to study, and how they were eliminated and how they had to go underground. And so this whole thing just formulates in a turbulent structure from the center out, and how civil classes will dissect, divide, and formulate into just, eventually you're going to probably have a no man's land. No man is just like World War I, where eventually, as one side starts to want to own the entire structure, which is going to be theoretically impossible, obviously, because there's so many people that it just, there's no way. There's no fucking way that this thing could ever actually, it is impulsive too. That's the thing. Is it's going to be so heavily impulsive that people are trying to just put everybody into this thing, and you're not going to have any evolutionary traits that are developing. What you're going to have is elimination of evolutionary traits of anybody that wants to either look outside of what these two leading powers have to say and what the upper, you know, delineating or dictating or dispersing of the thoughts of the other two in there, so that you have your subground. And it's just that you're going to have to domesticate and control and manipulate, and like how people can be eventually, just like the true artist utopian society, where you slowly decay and lose freedoms. And just to sustain that a little bit longer, though in that aspect you still have your history to rely on, this won't. They could completely fabricate, destroy, and manipulate history. The thing is just disturbing to consider. I think the utopian society perfectly describes, you know, the true artist utopian society, that's the best way that I ever figured out how to conceptualize a utopia. And I did so without my own partiality, right? Through obeying the laws of free will. But this thing has none of that.